I can hear you, but I don't think Twitch can hear us. Twitch, can you? Okay, I can hear it through Twitch. I can hear you, but I don't think Twitch can
Right.
hear us. Twitch, can you? Okay. Okay, I can hear it through Twitch. I can hear you, but I don't think Twitch can
Right.
hear us.
Oh, wait. It was me.
Oh, yay! Twitch!
Sweet. Okay. So let's start this over. So hopefully whenever we reach our 500 followers on the official Millennials channel, we will have Peach Z and Crazy Evie do our makeup. Pray for us. But I think they could do a pretty good job. I would hope so anyway. Oh my gosh, it's going to be so much fun. I love it.
A lot of fun if we could get reach that goal by our 1-year anniversary.
I know, we're just 4 months away. I think we can do it.
Oh my goodness. I think we could.
Oh no.
Peach. Oh no.
All right.
Oh, that'd be funny.
Well, we read for the book of May. It's Keelan's birthday month, and her birthday's on Monday. Whoop whoop. She chose Beauty and the Beast, which is a retelling by K.M. Shea. So tell us why you picked this book, Puzzled.
So, one of my favorite genres to read is fairy tale retellings. There's actually a whole bunch of them out there, and a whole bunch of them on Kindle Unlimited. Girl, give me something to read. And they're all very different. They all definitely have their own unique twists. The artists or the authors definitely both bring their own flair, own creativity to these storytellings. And K.M. Shea's telling that starts with Beauty and the Beast, it begins a world where you kind of want to know more. Like, okay, what else is going on? I need just a little bit more. And next thing you know, you're 13 books in and waiting for the new one.
And it's
an amazing job. What?
I was gonna say, and you have a tentative date on your book spreadsheet.
Yeah. But she just does this amazing job of world building and intertwining these characters and just making them feel like you'd want to be their friend. Like, these are people that you would probably know, or you would want to know.
Yeah.
So,
I definitely love, a lot of, fairy tales that you kind of know or grew up with. Like, it's a damsel in distress, and, she has a savior. But why can't she save herself? And I really liked that K.M. Shea really brought that to life in this retelling. So
yeah. And she... Okay.
Oh no, I was gonna say, let's dive into it. Let's talk about the book.
So the first thing in the book is we meet our hero and heroine with our heroine falling through a skylight. So already off the bat, it is different from its original. Just the fact that she's not a girl from a town whose father is going away, whose father is imprisoned, and she sacrifices herself. You're just trying to figure out, what was she doing in the ceiling in the first place? But the other thing that we first learned that's different from the classic is because she falls through the skylight and there are other people around her. So our Belle is now named Elle, and our Beast / Adam, which we know from Disney, is called Severin. And so Severin is there when she falls through the skylight, and the other people with him are his servants. They immediately are like, okay, we've got to take care of her. And he begrudgingly allows this, lets her, stay in a room. And when she finally gets to have a good look at them, they all wear a mask that covers like their face. Some of them she can see their eyes, some of them she can't. So this is already the biggest change from our retelling.
Mm-hmm.
Is they're actual people, but they're people who wear masks, and then we learn a little bit into it. They cannot speak. They interact with each other and communicate by writing on slates, which I thought was definitely interesting.
Yeah, I really like that. And I had a hard time like picturing like what they look like, because like I think I like your cup.
Yes, I'm a high functioning hot mess.
I love it. I was having a hard time like picturing like what they look like, and just like based on the tale. So we kind of know it from like the classic retelling that the beast, aka the prince, was cursed by a witch, right? In this version, he was cursed by the witch, yes, who turned him into this beast, not only of body, but also of mind. And the enchantress helped bring him back to his human mind, but he had to retain his beast form. And he had done some pretty terrible things as, the beast. But they also cursed his staff in his house, where they would disappear or wax away, how she described it in the book. So I was thinking like they would have like waxed over features, like they were like just disappearing, and it really creeped me out when I thought about it. The more I did, so I had to go back and reread some details, and I'm glad that I did, because I would have spent the entire book thinking they looked that way.
No. The way I kind of pictured it was very Infinity War after the snap, where they just kind of had the dust flowing off. And the way the Enchantress Angelique, this is our first meeting of her. She's actually one of my favorite characters, but we'll get to that in a little bit. She was able to save what hadn't basically floaten away and cover that with masks to help pretty much give them a little bit of dignity. Because we definitely learned throughout the book that a lot of the people in the surrounding towns, they fear these people for no reason. They're the exact same people they were before the curse. But we even learned, like, Emil's family, they disown her because they call her a freak. She's a monster. Because she wears a mask and her master was cursed.
Yeah.
It was just heartbreaking for me.
Yeah, that was a heartbreaking detail. So she falls through the skylight. The beast carries her to this room, Severin, and he notices that she doesn't scream in terror whenever she sees him. She just kind of bitches about her leg and then passes out. And then when she wakes up, she has these servants around. So Emil is one of them, and they're writing on slates to her, and she is talking like, okay, I have to protect my identity. They can't know who I am. So you're really thinking at this point, like, who are you? And what were you doing on the roof? But nobody asked her what she's doing on the roof until like weeks later. So they're writing on the slate and trying to get her to read, and she pretends, I can't read. I'm just a poor peasant girl. I can't read. And Emil starts teaching her how to read. So she holds up items and she's like, what is this? It's a book. And she writes the word for her, which I thought was actually very sweet of Emil.
It's very sweet. And I don't think Emil's ever taught anyone how to read, because I feel that was a very ineffective way to teach somebody.
Yeah. And basically, Elle's like reading capabilities get better overnight, but nobody says anything to her. But like all these people like to fawn over her.
Or the fact that she loses her, or the fact that she loses her peasant accent.
Yes, she has like this Cockney accent at first. Yeah. Yes. So she has this like accent.
Sorry, go ahead.
And then, then all these like servants come in, and you have Duval, who is like the medicine caretaker guy, and he sets her leg for her. You have Burgadine, who is the cook, and oh my gosh, apparently her food is like delicious and delectable. And then you kind of start seeing more of the grounds as her leg gets better. And it was crazy to me that we never know what her mission is or why she was on the roof. Nobody presses her for this information until she starts having communication with Severin.
And even the first communications that she starts having with him, they're very forced on her side. He never really even asks her name until later on. And he never even asked her. He ends up asking one of his manservants. And he just keeps calling her intruder because he wants to remind her who she is.
So Duval is like telling him, like, listen, she's not going to be ready to go at least like for 3 weeks. And then the 3 weeks come, and he's like, yeah, it's going to be a good 6 months before she's well. And Severin says, no, like 3 months, that's it. And the guy's like, cool, bye. And that's exactly what he wanted. I thought that was hilarious. Yeah, his servants know how to manipulate him into getting what they want. But he cares for them. He cares for his servants so deeply.
I was gonna say, how much do you love the relationship he actually uh we see with his servants? They're not really scared of him. They actually admire him. They respect him. They're basically his friends almost.
Yeah. And he's more upset whenever they're disrespected than anything else. Like he defends their honor. So who is Prince Severin, right? And why is he important? Well, in this story, he's apparently the illegitimate son of a king. And his brother, Prince Lauren, basically has reign, or will soon to have reign over this kingdom, and he acts as his general. And he is apparently well sought after because he's a master strategist and a tactical fighter. So we get to see a little bit of Prince Lauren. So whenever that fact was introduced, I was sus of Prince Lauren. Like, I thought for sure, like, oh, she's there to assassinate him, or he's doing something. And I didn't really like understand exactly like their relationship, but whenever the author wrote like dialogue between Prince Lauren and Prince Severin, it was very much an affectionate brotherly relationship. He listened to his brother, and he wanted to hear what he had to say. And anytime, Severin was like, ugh, like, it would just be better off without me. I don't want to go to court. Everybody talk shit about me, basically. But his brother was like basically by his side every step of the way. And I thought that was really sweet.
And I thought it was very, big of Severin, or I'm sorry, big of Lorien, because Severin is the older brother. And so he actually worries that people are going to call for him to become the crown prince or become the king. And he definitely makes sure to separate that. He is wholly devoted to Lorien being the crown prince. He completely supports him, and he's happier, I think, honestly, being the general and taking that step back.
Yeah.
And I actually thought it was very observant of Lorien to be like, when are you going to forgive yourself for being born? So we definitely see Severin have this internal struggle of, he knows who he supports and who he's for, but he's worried about people outside the kingdom coming after him. He's worried about the people of the kingdom, like, trying to root for him. And so he just, like, refuses to forgive himself.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And he knows, like, when he became the beast, too, that he caused a lot of harm. So that's kind of like where I was thinking, like, before we got to know Alice, it's like, well, maybe he had something to do with maybe her family or something like that happened, and you're just kept in suspense. So they start building little building blocks, and the servants kept like trying to push them together every step of the way, because of the story of Beauty and the Beast. So
Physically dragging.
Yes.
and like honestly physically dragging her to dinner with him every night. I thought that was hilarious. They're like, "No, you don't really get a choice in this matter. This is going to happen."
Yeah, so she couldn't walk, and like the
Um,
dining table is downstairs. So they basically had a chair. They put her on this chair and they carried the chair down the stairs to go have dinner with Severin every night. And she would just like talk to herself and just, be like, this food is delectable. And she has like this like amazing vocabulary. She talks all about the food. And he never really gives her anything. Like his ears would go back, or he'll just eat whatever he wants to eat and completely ignores her. But as time goes on, he softens up just a little bit, and he ends up telling her his story. And I think she had a real soft spot for
well,
him.
definitely. And we definitely see his soft spot beginning, him becoming more open to her after
Hmm.
when her and Emil were walking in the gardens one day. They come across a little boy who is high up over the wall and in the tree, and he tries throwing rocks at Emil. He's throwing insults at her, and Elle just is like, "I'm not putting up with this shit," and throws her crutch at a little boy. Basically, knocks him down out of the tree, loses the crutch. And once Severin learns that, this is what she did for him or for her, her friend, the woman who's been waiting on her, that's when he's like, well, maybe she's not so bad,
Hmm.
right? Peach, fuck that boy up.
Yeah, right? Go home to your mother. And I think like she gave him some perspective too. Like she didn't do anything to you. Like you're antagonizing her. And poor Emil, she never went as far like trying to get off, not getting off the grounds, but further away from the house after that because she was scared of another incident like that, which I thought was pretty sad. And then you see like the interpersonal
I think this is
relationship.
when we learn about.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead, sir. I think there's a slight delay on my side. I'm sorry.
No worries. I'm like, what is that? Oh, okay. Um, and I think this is when Emil shares her family story with Elle to
Hmm.
let her know my family disowned me. This is what's going on. But while we're in the subject of the gardens, so Emil does make sure that Elle takes strolls in the gardens on her crutches, helping her, just basically get out of the castle. Because who, after like what a month and a half in bed, you would not want to be cooped up anymore.
Right.
Um, and this is where we meet one of another servants, Mark.
Mm-hmm. Aw.
And Elle kind of senses a romantic interest from Emil for Mark, and so she's able to tease her about it. They have a little girl time about it, and I thought it was really really sweet to see the interactions between them two and how their story takes place.
Yeah. So can we just jump ahead to Emil and Mark and that kind of that story?
Oh, I'm for it. I'm for it.
Okay.
Okay,
So
tell us
what
about Milan.
once Elle learns about Severin and his curse and what their those emotes are really cool, Peach. Anyway, once Elle learns about like the Severin's, curse and what the servants are trying to do, push them together, and keeping in mind her own mission, she's just like, I can't fall in love with him. Like there has to be a physical attraction, and Emil just gets so angry at her, and she's never really displayed any anger towards Elle at this point, so it was a little uncharacteristic, but it was with good intentions. She said, whenever I first came to court, I was to be wed to somebody else, but whenever this happened, all my suitors dropped me, and my parents came to see me and they basically insulted me, and the only person to defend me was Mark when I had basically ridiculed him when I was beautiful. And it really made me see that love is much more than being, physically attracted to somebody. It's really on the inside that counts. And she basically gives Elle like this perspective that people are much more than their appearances, which is like, oh, like love them for the inside. And I think that was the much needed kick in the ass that Elle needed. to see Severin in a different way.
And I also just really want to point out that a lot of times, especially in fairy tales, the man sees the girl sees the man, they have love at first sight. And a lot of that's usually based off of first physical attraction. And what this story really does is it makes you look past that first initial attraction.
Hmm.
And I think that's just a life lesson that everybody needs to learn, especially, the boys growing up, girls growing up. They watch these stories and they're like, oh, it's love at first sight. And it's like, no, like, yes, that can happen and that's great for them. But a lot of the time, love does not work like that, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah. There's like built like a friendship needs to be had first. And I think that Severin and
Yeah.
Elle really developed a friendship of just caring for one another. And you start seeing this. So she tells Severin, listen, I need to get back to my family. I serve the crown. And if I don't get back, and she doesn't tell him which crown, like, is it his or another crown? If I don't get back, they'll be punished. And basically, she's an indentured servant to the crown. So something happened where the crown paid off her debts, and she's basically an indentured in servitude until she pays it off. And that's pretty much all that she tells him, and pretty much tells us too as the reader. That's basically all that we know. And he understands, and he says, wow, like, that speaks a lot about your character, because your family needed you, your mother's dead, like, you needed to step up and save them and help financially recover. That's awesome of you. And she's like, well, somebody had to do it. So he gives her a pony, and she doesn't want to take it. And then on the day that she's supposed to leave, he gives her money to pay off her debt to the crown. And she ends up not not leaving because a magical blizzard came and fucked up her whole plans. So she's ended up staying for a little bit longer, and in that time, she's able to really connect to Severin.
Yeah, the blizzard is definitely because even before the blizzard, we've really seen their relationship progress. They become companions of one another. They seek each out for not only, talking points or conversation, but also solitude because we mentioned the servants are very pushy.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the times to get out from under their foot, they'll go hang out in the reading room together and they'll just read or he'll work
Mm-hmm.
on his paper or and then once she starts getting strength back in her foot, she's finally getting clear to walk. He pushes her. He basically does a oh God, what's the Pavillon? Where you do the thing, you get a treat.
Oh,
He
Pavlov?
he Pavillon's dogs her. Yes, thank you.
Got you.
um, and and then once the snow clears after a little bit, they decide to take a ride together on their horses. And I'm mentioning this because Peach is mentioning a wizard. And they're going around, they go a little bit off the beaten path, and they actually come across a mountain hag. So aside from the enchantress's magic, this is really the first we're seeing of magic. Because she's like, I'm gonna cut out your heart, little maiden, and I'm gonna eat it to make myself live longer.
Mm-hmm.
And Severin kind of takes note that the mountain hags do come down, but it's not normally until a lot later on. Because this is like the first snowfall of the season, and usually they come like mid to late winter season. Um, so it was also just like really sweet to not because they didn't work together. But Severin defends Elle.
Mm-hmm.
He takes care of the hag for her. And she's like, "But why would you do that?"
Oh, yeah,
And
because
he's like,
the
"You're a guest in my home. You're my responsibility."
yeah, but then also like the hag threatens to curse him, and he's like, "You're a little too late for that." She's like, "Oh, but it can always be worse," and he doesn't even think about himself. He like cuts her down, and that's the end of that. And they end up going back to his chateau, which is what is it called? It's like Shan Yu Chateau. Is that what it is? The name
I
of it?
just pronounce it Chance Chateau because I don't know.
Well, it's a chateau. And it's huge.
The chateau.
The chateau.
And at this point, with Elle's inner monologue, she does notice that she has real feelings for Severin. She's like, "Fuck, I love him." Like shit, I can't. I
What
wasn't
was it
supposed
supposed to
to.
do? Exactly. So so while this is all going on, Peach, she had to put a stretch. I just stretched my shot arm and it hurts so bad. So while all this is going on, there's another layer to the story, which is the Prince Lorien is trying to look to invade a fellow country called Arcadia. And
Arcadia.
so Arcadia is a smaller country, and apparently they're sending in spies, and he wants to conquer them first, and Severn's trying to calm him down, like, don't do that, don't do that. So part of me is thinking, like, is she working for Arcadia? And whenever he's talking strategy with her, she almost corrects him in some aspects of what he's thinking, or certain political, complications, if you will.
Because he's talking about the Arcadian spies, and we see her mental thought of, "Excuse you, they're called sneaks."
No, she mentally does it. So it's her inner dialogue. And she's like, oh shit, like, I can't blow my cover. And so you start thinking, like, is she, like, Arcadian? Like, is she there nefariously? And at first, like, she really hates Severin. She doesn't want anything to do with him. And then she softens up as the story progresses, and you get to see a little bit more. So Prince Lorien ends up sending word ahead to the chateau and says, brother, this certain alliance is coming for you. We're sending troops. They'll be there in an hour's time from this message. So he's like, shit, I gotta get Elle out of here. And basically tells her, you need to go. Like, I'll come, you can come back, or I'll come get you, or whatever. And she takes off. Do you want to tell them what happens next?
So she takes off, and Severin starts basically, like, battering down the hatches. Like, he's preparing his servants. He's like, y'all need to make sure to get to safe places in the castle. He gets his guards set up to defend the castle, and he basically goes into war mode. So that by the time Lorien's forces appear, he's able to tell them exactly where they need to go. He's got patrols, like, on mark, and he even goes through and, like, he makes sure that they all have whistles, so that if one of them gets into trouble, they can blow the whistle, and then the other ones can hear him and come running. So I guess it's like a few hours after this first message, he goes outside and he starts double checking everybody's at their post. Everything's, yes, Peach, kind of exactly like a battle scene in a movie. He's like, we're people are coming, like, shit's happening. And so as he goes through and he's making sure everybody's at the post, he goes to one side of the garden, and he notices that there are a couple of guards missing. So he goes to blow his whistle, and he is able to blow his whistle, but then an arrow,
here's a snap.
One of the sneaks, the Arcadian spies, show up, and they try to attack him. So now he's not only fighting actually one of them, he's fighting three of them. They've come up to him, they're trying to attack him, and then all of a sudden we see this arrow just fly in, and he looks over up into the treetop over in the garden, and it's our Elle.
She's actually an intelligencer. She's a scout for their army, and we end up learning a bunch of stuff later on. But this moment is critical, right? She's wearing this awesome cloak. She takes off her cloak. She has a bow and arrow. She has a dead fucking eye. She's super badass. And he's like, what? Where? What? Like, why? How? And she basically tells him, like, yeah, this is me, but Severin, I love you. And then in that moment...
Well, and
Oh yeah, go ahead. Go for it. Go for it. Go for
right
it.
before she says this, sorry, I know. He actually gets hurt when he's scuffling with the Arcadians. And he is getting closer and closer to that store because he did get stabbed. I think the one of the tips was laced with poison. And so she has her other people go take care of the two guys that ran off. One's mortally wounded beside her, so she comes over and yeah, exactly. She's like, Severin, I love you, and he's just like dying. um, and at first she doesn't know if it works or not.
Hmm.
She's like, oh no, I was too late. I meant to tell him, and da 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 da. But then all of a sudden we get the magic whirlpool that lifts him up and turns him back into a man. And she's like, "Oh my god, you're okay." But before that either of them can really talk about what the fuck just happened, Prince Lorien comes waltzing in and he says, "Great job, Ranger 78. You turned him back into a human."
So it turns out that Prince Lorien hired Ranger 78, which is L, to basically spy on Severin and to make sure that he was okay. Um, Again, like, up until this point, I thought totally ill of Prince Lorien. Like, I thought for sure that this was a coup of some way. I don't know, because apparently, even though Severin's supposed to be illegitimate, he's actually the heir to the throne, and he was eliminating him. That was my thought process. But that was not it at all. He was just trying to protect Severin. And Ranger 78, which is her, was the perfect person to do it. And her falling through the skylight was just an accident. But so Prince Lorien comes out. He's like, thank goodness, great job. Well, we caught the rest of them. Let's pack it up, boys. And pretty much leaves like a badass. And Prince Severin, no, Peach, it's not. It's not a coup. Prince Severin's just like, you lied to me. Like, how could you lie to me? And he was pissed. Like, you don't love me. Like, I loved you. Like, that's what broke my curse, is that I loved you. And he was basically thinking, like, there's no way. Like, it was either one or the other. It didn't have to be both. Which is really stupid on his part. I was really pissed at him. So what did you think during this part?
Especially when he, like, yeah, because especially he is the one who told Elle, I have to fall in love and a woman has to fall in love with me. He used the word and, so he knew. And I think just like in this moment, there was a lot of confusion for him learning who she truly was. A top rated intelligence officer. He honestly used her for so many missions. He didn't even know who Ranger 78 was. But the Rangers are kind of like they're spies. They send them into other countries to, go check things out, make things stop before they happen. And he's used her multiple times over the years. And that's when he kind of goes back to look into his logbooks to check her statuses. And he has used every excuse in the book to keep her on his team. Oh, Ryzen, that's so awesome. Also, hi.
Hi. Raisin says he started sponsoring a child overseas. Aww, that's so sweet. Anyway. We'll talk more about that in a moment, Raisin. But, so yeah, he checks her logs. He didn't even know that Ranger 78 was a female. He just sent them on missions, and basically what happened is her father was a merchant who did his trade by sea. Something happened, his ship sank, and he was like a double agent, like he did some things for the crown. So what they did is they paid off his debts, and in return, Elle became an indentured servant. And at that point, they didn't really know her skill set. But then they come to realize, oh my god, like she's an excellent marksman, like she's really clever, she can blend in, and they start sending her on these missions, and Severin gets a little greedy about Ranger 78, about letting them out of their servitude.
Yeah. And that was like really, I mean, aside from, so once he turns back into a human, Lorien definitely pushes him to come live back at the main palace with him, celebrations, all that jazz. And one of the servant characters that we kind of gotten to know throughout the entire book was a little boy named Oliver. He was a groom's boy. So before Elle departs the main palace, Prince Lorien has given her one more assignment, and um, so he is actually the only one who believes that Elle was in love with Severin. After all of the servants, they get their faces back, they get their voices back. Emile, first person, lashed out at Elle. She's like,
Mm-hmm.
"How could you do this to Severin? How could you do this to us? We believed in you." And I thought that was like, damn, way to be harsh, Emile.
100%. I was pissed that they were mad at her. I'm like, she had a job to do. Like, her job was
What?
to protect him, and she did that job. You know, like, who she was
Mm-hmm.
authentically or not, like, her job was to protect the prince, and she did that. To be mad at her for that is pretty fucked up because it wasn't like her doing. Like, it wasn't like she made the decision to do that. She was ordered to do that. Her family's lives were
Well,
on the
and not only
line.
that, yeah, but then and not only that, it wasn't her idea to fall in love with Severin. It was Emile's and the rest of the servants. Like, bitch, this is your fault if anybody's.
But look what happened. Like,
But we definitely had, what?
sorry, I was like, but look what happened. Like, he became a human again. You know, he's able to go back to court. He survived an attack, you know, and he was able to tell his brother, like, we are not going to invade this other country, but instead we're going to put pressure on them politically to get them to do what we want. And it was like a really touching moment. I was really proud of him.
But so Oliver, this little boy Oliver, he is the only one to believe Elle, and he gets this wild, crazy idea. And then unfortunately, he actually disappears for 2 months from the book. So we definitely see, Severin worried about him, sending out guards, sending out search parties. And after the 2 months are up, Oliver comes back, and in tow, he has the lady enchantress in training, Angelique. And Angelique is like, "Oh, look at you, Severin, you're human again. Thank gosh." And he's like, "No, it's bad because I fell in love with her, but it was all just a game for her." And Angelique was like, "Did I not explain this correctly, bro? Like, it was not one or the other. It's no, you both have to love each other." So she was genuine, Severin. And he definitely has this oh shit moment. And so he goes to look back at the Ranger files, and he sees that she's on one more mission. And it's probably her deadliest mission yet. They had intelligence that the people who came to kill Severin at his chateau were actually sent from the Varglass Assassins Guild. Okay, first of all, in this world, there is an assassin guild, like a whole place set just for assassins. That's crazy.
We're gonna get to this in a moment, but I really wanted to see more of the world. Like, and I know that there's so many other books to the series, but I was thinking, like, oh my gosh, like, there's a lot of, different kingdoms and countries and customs that you just want to know more about it, and we get a little glimpse of that with this Vargas one. So her debt's already paid off to the crown. Severin paid out the rest of her dues for her, but she voluntarily took on this mission because this guild was trying to kill Severin.
Yes. So she took up the mission to actually get the paperwork that put out the order to assassinate Severin, and she's able to. So this is actually, we've seen it a couple of times before in this in the story. But Severin has a glass mirror, and it's a lot like the one in the Disney one. He's basically like, "Show me the girl." And it actually is able to show him Elle. And so Angelique is like, "Well, there she is. Why don't you go get her?" He's like, "But I don't know where she is. It just shows me what she's doing." And she's like, "Do you not know how to use this, bro?" And she's basically like, okay, mirror, zoom out. And so it's able to zoom out enough to actually show him where Elle is. And we get to follow him in going to find her and their reunion.
Yeah. So, they have a nice little reunion. Like, she's like a little hurt after escaping from this Assassin's Guild, and she stole like the contract so they can press political pressure on this other country that was trying to cut the general out of the equation completely. And then that's pretty much it. Like, they kind of live a happily ever after from there, which is really sweet. I really like this retelling. Have you really not been listening?
Yes. It's very different from, most just classic stories in general. We don't have a hero who's a damsel in distress. Yes, she's a damsel. Yes, she's in distress.
She's
Fuck
got it
off.
covered.
She's got this though. You know? And we really get to see her, be her own person. She has her own story. She has her own way of doing things. And she's not just a helpless girl, she gets shit done.
She's pretty smart and thinks pretty quick on her feet. I really appreciated that about this retelling of the story. I also really loved how, like, yeah, the villager. Sorry, I just saw Peach's comment. So, right.
I was like, I really love that pun.
Raisin says Zamir has its own FBI and NSA agent behind it, and Peach says it's classified. Well, it's glassified. Sorry. Anyway, I enjoyed it because, like, you see, like, you don't really see a lot of heroines, like, growing up. Like, sometimes it's just, like, princesses, like, Cinderella or Aurora from Sleeping Beauty. And this one, like, the heroine really made it herself, like, she was a badass. I just wanted more. Like, I wanted more story. I wish the book was longer because I wanted to see those interpersonal connections between her and the staff, and I wanted to see I just wanted to see more of that. I want to know Elle's background too, like her other missions. Like, that would be fun to see.
Right, just a whole story of Elle's missions. That'd be so great. Let's see. Okay, where are we at? Okay, so now let's get to some of the discussion questions. So before I start this, because one of the questions has a nickname for the author. The author is actually very close with her fandom. She loves receiving like fan mail and fan art. And if you go to her website, she actually posts a lot of the fan art for her different book series. I found a Discord that she runs. And this is actually where I got these discussion questions, by going in there and was just like, hey, fellow readers. I actually called them champions. Hey, champions.
Aw.
I'm doing book club with Beauty and the Beast. It is Kitty's version. She does allow her readers to call her Kitty, so I feel very... I was like, do y'all have any discussion questions? Because I'm going to be doing a book club, and I think this is going to be a lot of fun. And so a lot of these questions actually come from them, their thoughts, what they think would make really good discussions. And they actually did have some pretty good discussion points in there. So let's just go ahead and get to the first one. So comparing Kitty's version to the original telling, what twist did you enjoy? And I think we've kind of touched on that a little bit. But what twist did you not see coming?
Prince Lorien not being a self-serving asshole.
Yes.
I 100% thought that it was going to be like his attack on Severin. Like, I don't know why I thought that. I guess like you've been conditioned to think that about certain characters in books. And it didn't play out that way. And I was happy for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was also nice to see, like, we don't see a lot of it, but we do see a little bit of depth to especially Severin and Elle's characters.
Mm-hmm.
They're not, just, this is who I am. It's, I'm this way because of this. There are reasons that I do X, Y, Z, and it's because of my background here. Like there's a lot more depth than we usually get to the majority of book characters, honestly.
Yeah, like and this may be just like work culture for me, but I work best from the why, and I think a lot of people don't think about that. Like, yes, you have this perspective and this experience, but your experience isn't everybody else's. There has to be a reason why somebody's like this, and I think that you're absolutely right. Like in the story, we get that more so than we do in other books.
Yeah.
Ryzen says, I just think that based on the
So
little I heard here, that the book shows how misunderstandings can make things longer and give grief. Yeah, absolutely.
excellent point. And that actually comes to one of our other discussion questions is by not having that conversation of Elle telling Severin who she was, it kind of drove them apart. So this is actually kind of a question for even the audience. How do you have those hard conversations of, I know you're not going to want to hear this, but this is who I am in a non-toxic placement?
Uh,
Because a lot of people use the excuse of, well, this is who I am, deal with it.
I think that that's so toxic. Like, I think that everybody has room to grow. And I know a lot of people in my personal life, even like close family members, that are like that. This is who I am and I'm never going to change. And I think looking at life in that perspective is so narrow minded. And, dealing with people like that, when you have enough care, you try to show them a different perspective, right? But ultimately, it's up to that person to want to learn and to open themselves up for change. And how do you get there? And that's the question.
Yeah. Yeah. So next question. Do you feel like you could forgive Severin like Elle did? So Elle, pretty much by the end of the book, when Severin comes for her, she gives him like a little bit of a tough time because they do have a fun banter. But she basically just forgives him. It's like, it's cool, I get it, I love you, let's go.
Yeah. Honestly, like, if the feelings were there, like, I would be happy that somebody finally came around, but I do think that some accountability needs to be there. Like, hey, what you said really hurt my feelings, and you didn't give me a chance to explain my side of things. So, I want to have the understanding that moving forward, that we have that open line of communication. And because I think that's important dialogue to have with somebody.
Yeah. And on the topic of dialogue, do you think that Elle should have told Severin she was a ranger sooner, despite the possible consequences?
No. She was there to do a job. She was doing her job.
Yeah.
And I understand that, like, their connection was getting closer, but she couldn't effectively do her job and keep him safe if she had told him.
When I was rereading the book, I started thinking about this question, and there were a lot of times when I was like, okay, Elle, you can tell him now. Like, you can have this conversation with him. But reflecting back on it and how the story pans out, it wouldn't have ended the way it did if she had told him.
Mm-hmm.
Even if she had told him I love you right then and there with that conversation, um, I don't think he had fallen in love with her enough for it, and they wouldn't be able to have their happy ending the way they did. So it sucks that they weren't able to have that open communication, and it sucks that the misunderstandings and, the grief had to happen, but turned out great.
I think it was growth on both their parts because, Severin kept people at a distance because, of how he looked. And whenever he found out that she was actually a ranger in his own army, that he was like, oh, well, this was just a job to you. So it's understandable why he was hurt. But I think that giving license to that is like giving license to these negative feelings. So like Ryzen saying in the chat room, besides, people needs to stop letting negative pull more than positive. Absolutely, 100%. Someone can do 100,000 good things and do one bad thing and have a huge falling out. But if somebody does 100,000 bad things and one good thing, it won't have the same effect, which 100%. 100% agree with that.
Mhm. Yeah. And it can be hard sometimes, especially when you do the 100,000 good things and you do the one bad thing and it ends with devastating consequences. But you look at character arcs of I've done 100,000 bad things and one good thing, and we're like, oh, look at them, they're redeemed. And it's like, well, I need you to prove to me a little bit more that you've been redeemed.
Yeah. There's a little bit more trust factor needs to come into play here.
I don't know why, but I have the last Airbender in my head about that. I'm all Zuko.
I haven't finished it.
um, let's see. So the next question. Did you agree with Lucien's attempt to protect Severin by having people secretly check Severin's security? In his shoes, would you do the same or do it in a less deceptive way?
Wait, repeat the question?
Do you agree with Lucien's attempt to protect Severin by having people secretly check Severin's security? So basically, having people spy on Severin in his household.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were in his shoes, would you do the same way or would you do it in a less deceptive way?
I think Lauren had to do it that way. I honestly do think that he did because Severin would not have. Severin wouldn't have like accepted any type of help in it anyway, and it ended pretty good.
Quick side note, his name's Lucien.
Oh, my bad. I called him Lauren. Is that Lord of the
I
Rings
was like,
coming
that sounds
through?
right. Lauren was the name of the country.
Oh, okay. Lucian. That's right. My bad.
Okay, please now give us that F. No, and I agree. Like it sucks that he had to do it, but I think it definitely show how deeply Lucien cares about Severin, because he's willing to do it secretly. He knows Severin thinks he's got it handled, that he's going to be okay, and Lucien does appreciate that about him, but also he wants to take that extra step, because Lucien's never going to agree to an additional security detail. He knows that they're rangers, they're army, they have better places to be, other people to protect, and that's very selfless of Lucien or Severin. But Lucien knows that this is the best way to do it.
Yep. Yeah, especially because Severin like has distanced himself so much from other people too.
Okay, so this is a fun question. If Elle offered a class to teach people how to walk on roofs, would you sign up?
No. She fell through a fucking skylight. Like, no way.
I would have.
He's
The whole
scary.
thing's scary. You missed the whole thing. Love you, buddy. How you doing? I would definitely do it. I would love how to, learn how to be sneakier. And remember, she's only been on the job for about a week.
Hmm.
So unfortunately, she missed that one step and she ended up falling.
She
Um,
miscalculated her landing. Also, she.
so figuring out who should play Elle was actually really hard because Kitty does give a pretty good description of what Elle looks like. She has black hair, it's very choppy bangs, looks like it's not cut in any decent sort of way. She probably just chopped it up herself. Um, and her eyes were, I think what they said, they were a little bit too far apart, and she has a mouth that's too big for her face. So it was really kind of hard to find actresses who look exactly like that. Because she's also very pretty, but she's not pretty until like you get to know her. Like she is pretty even before you get to know her. But like when you first do a glance at her, they're like, oh well, she's plain looking. She's plain. Um, so I went through like pages and pages of actresses in their early 20s, And the closest one that I thought would actually be a perfect fit for this was Bailey Madison. She plays a young Snow on the Once Upon a Time TV show. We've seen her in a few other things, and I just like, you know what? I think she could excel at this.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think so too. And thinking like others, like have you seen The Kissing Booth on
No, I
Netflix?
haven't.
I can't remember her name. She's I think if she had darker hair, she could play Elle really well because she kind of fits that same description. Um, Now for Severin, you said who?
Um, so Severin is definitely very Brody, very serious. I mean, the majority of time, he looks like a cat, which Elle loves to make fun of him for with his little kitty ears. Um, um, but later on in the series, we do see a lot of him, and I thought either Taylor Lautner or Kit Harington would fit really well into this role.
Yeah. I think Kit Harington would be a really good fit. Like a very brooding, almost like Batman-esque type of persona, like just like his demeanor. I think so.
Yeah.
Wait, do I want to see Kit Harington
Yeah.
as Batman? Maybe. Maybe. No, Puzzle, you froze. Did I freeze?
I froze?
I froze. Sorry.
No, you're not.
Oh, I thought I froze for a moment.
Oh, now our stream is acting all wonky. Oh well. Well, we're about close to the end anyways.
Well, our
You
next
know nothing about snow.
right? Yeah. I'm super excited to announce our next book for our next book club. It is going to be Shadow and Bone by Lee Bradley. She is video wasn't working. Is it back? Okay, good. It's going to be Shadow and Bone by Leah Bradley, and I'm very excited. There is a Netflix show, and we will be reading that, or we'll be reading the story. I've already watched it, but Puzzled's going to read it and then watch it and see if that changes our perspective. And that will be on June 25th at 7:30 p.m., and we also have something very exciting coming up next month. It's a great event, but we are not going to be announcing it just yet.
Yeah, not just yet. Look out for the announcement at the end of May. We are super excited. We will hint that there is a collaboration happening. Dun dun dun. But that's all we're gonna say.
We'll start talking about it in a couple weeks. Shadow and Bone.
Shadow and Bone by Bardugo. Oh, that's not what I wanted.
There you go.
Copy.
So
Bardugo. And I'm actually glad we have this pushed back a little bit later than normal. Because it's not on Kindle Unlimited, but the library does have an ebook for it, but they only have 115 copies, and there are 466 holds on it.
oh my gosh,
So it is a very in-demand book.
it is okay. So let me tell you a little bit about it. So it's about something called the Shadow Fold, and it's like this layer of darkness that covers a part of land, and it separates like a kingdom and then other cities. What happened to create this fold was there's something called Grisha, and they are magic users, and they were pretty much persecuted against for being magic users. And there was this one particular magic user. He was a shadow summoner, which he can bring darkness. And he ended up doing something that created the fold. And ever since then, like, nobody has ever seen another shadow summoner until Now, the general of this army has a shadow summoner, and his name's Kurgan, and they're trying to figure out a way to get rid of the fold. Enters in two characters, Alina and Mal. They were both orphans from what happened with the fold, and Mal's a warrior and Alina's a cartographer. But there's a secret. And if you want to know the secret, you're going to have to read the book or watch the show. But we'll be back here on the 25th.
Exciting, exciting.
I'm excited.
So excited.
I'm excited to read it for sure. Yes. Yes. Kindle had a deal where all three books were like 20 USD Ryzen instead of like 30 whatever. So I bought all three. I was like, yep, we're going to do that deal because I know I'm going to want to read the next one after that.
You right.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, guys. Well.
Okay, yeah. Amazon has it for 23. Nice.
Yeah. Well, I hope you guys have a good rest of your weekend. Let us know if you have any questions about the book. You're free to talk about it in the You Heard discussion channel in our Discord, and our website will be uploaded later tonight. I hope you guys have a great day and make good choices.
Thank you guys for being here. I really do appreciate it. And if this book or the Beauty and the Beast piques your interest, I'm always open to talk about the next ones. The next book in the series was The Wild Goose, I do believe. Let me double check that. The Wild Swan, The Wild Goose. There it is. The Wild Swans. And this actually follows the family in Arcadia. We did hear a little bit about them in this first book, mostly that they're very blue collared, that their princes and princess, they actually work in the government. So it even has like even been more of a twist on the classics.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of fun.
A lot of fun.
All right, guys. Thank you guys for being here. I hope y'all have a good Friday night.
Bye, y'all.